So let's get to our listeners' question. Ian, why does Nancy Pelosi have to visit Taiwan? He follows up with, of course, he sensed a very awkward conversation and moments of silence between Biden and Xi. This is, of course, referring to the telephone conversation that both presidents had this week, which lasted an exact 2 hours and 17 minutes. You know, I love the fact they record all of this. Chinese president warned President Biden not to play with fire over Taiwan. In the context of that, should Pelosi go to Taiwan? How does this play out?
Okay, look, the U.S. and China are on that trajectory towards a Cold War. The competition that the way the U.S. is framing the relationship, China does not like. China has said that it is a mistake to define the U.S.-China relationship in terms of competition. You have the U.S. having put tariffs on China under President Trump that President Biden has kept on. You've had much stronger language towards Taiwan, in support of Taiwan from the United States that you had in the past. So in all of this context, you now have the Speaker of the House potentially planning to go to Taiwan. There has been no official announcement, and so that is critical to keep in mind. But it is part of the trajectory the U.S. is on towards Taiwan. It is totally consistent with Nancy Pelosi's personal view of China. I mean, remember in 1991, she went to China and she unfurled a banner about Tiananmen and the massacre that occurred there, and that is something that was extremely provocative in 91. So that's who she is. I mean, she really believes that the U.S. needs to be much tougher towards communist China, and so that's what plays into all of this. And it is in a different era, though, than what happened in 1991. It's in a different era than what happened in 1997, the last time a Speaker of the House went, Newt Gingrich. So she's not setting precedent by going, but it is something that is going to have to be really thought through as to whether or not she goes.
Well, just to follow up, sorry, Glenn, just to follow up from that. Yes, you're right. She's 82. She's getting closer to retirement. She's looking to cement her legacy, as you mentioned there, as a champion of Taiwan. And that's great from a personal point of view. There'll be wonderful biographies written about Pelosi. But in the cut and thrust and pragmatism of geopolitics, on a broader sense, is it necessarily the right thing to do?
That is the debate that is going on. And I'm on one side of that debate amongst all my China watcher friends and former officials in the U.S. Look, on the one hand, you say, look, we have three co-equal branches of government. Speaker Pelosi is equal to President Biden under our Constitution. Yep. She can go if she wants to go. So that is her right to do under our Constitution. She also can be looking this as it's the right thing to do to show support for Taiwan. She can also be looking this, as one of the comments said, from a political perspective. The Democrats can show in the midterms coming up that they are as tough on China as the Republicans, and standing up to China in this highly visible way is very good for the Democrats politically going into the midterms. Now, there are reasons not to go. And when you have, President Xi telling President Biden, you are playing with fire when you do things like that, and those who play with fire get burned, that is a reason to say, is this the right time to go? Does this send the right message? Yeah. So it is still playing out as to whether or not she's going to be there. And there are other ways for her to accomplish her goal without going to Taiwan.
Beijing announced that they're going to have live fire exercises today, later on today, 120 kilometers from Taiwan, on a small island there. No surprise, right? Apparently they had said that they will be limited, so they aren't trying to ramp it up too much, but they're sending the signal that they are noticing and they are not happy about it. And again, it just, from what I've heard, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon has asked her, or has said, this is not a good idea. And so when you start going against your own military, and for what appears to be a political aim, I don't think that's very smart. And we are at a moment that is there's a lot of tension about a lot of things. I just don't see, other than a good political photo op for her, what the benefit is. And I don't even think it's going to help that much with the midterms. I don't think Americans care about this. I mean, the Taiwanese American community obviously does, and rightly so. But the majority of voters couldn't put Taiwan on a map if there was one country on that map they couldn't point to.
That was exactly the point. I was just to add to Glenn's point. You know, I'm reading reports that Biden doesn't want to be seen as being soft on China when his approval ratings are 40%. But to Glenn's point, in the Rust Belt states, in Middle America, in suburban America, do they really even
They're going to
care about
the cost of gasoline in their car?
I'll tell you, they certainly
but the
care.
political ramifications could be huge.
Okay, in Washington, they really, really care about China. They care what's happening in the U.S.-China relationship. You look at all of the legislation, bipartisan, that has passed. You had the Uyghur Forced Labor Protection Act, which has said, from the U.S. perspective, because there is a genocide in Xinjiang from the Chinese government, we are going to ban the imports of any goods that come from Xinjiang, because the presumption is if it's from Xinjiang, there has been forced labor.
I get it. Yeah.
You have the sanctions against all the officials in Hong Kong. You have the CHIPS Act, which just passed, the act that's given $52 billion to have semiconductor chip manufacturing in the United States. Yeah. The Congress is absolutely unified for all, really, it's unified, bipartisan, and that it fits within that. Now,
that's my question, though. How does this trip actually fit within that?
It fits within it because it shows we are not going to let China, we are not going to let President Xi, we are not going to let the Communist Party dictate what we do. We have gone to Taiwan in the past. We've had senior visits in the past. We've had past speakers go, and now they tell us we can't go. Yeah. Well, if we look weak if we can't go. I mean, that's the argument. Now, I think there are face-saving ways out of this. Yeah. You could, for example, have, Speaker Pelosi is going to Japan. Maybe you have President Tsai of Taiwan meet with her in Japan. So you have the meeting, except it's not in Taiwan. That's a step back. And so both sides can have face saving there. Right. Maybe Speaker Pelosi says, look, I never confirmed I was going to go now. Right. Let me go next year after the midterms when she's not the Speaker of the House. So she still gets to go. She still gets to show that what her position is. But it's different when she goes not as the number 3 person in the United States government. So there are possibilities that this still doesn't go through. I am in the minority thinking that the trip that her visit won't happen now on this coming week. Most people think that she is going to go and that it really could lead to maybe, some type of accident that neither side is prepared for.
Right. I want to quickly get our listener in. Ian says, it looks like the ambiguity stance of the U.S. towards one China, two systems is contradictory to what the U.S. is now going to do. And just to add to his second point, and this is one we haven't considered, it just creates more cross-border tensions between China and Taiwan. That's a very good point from Ian, because you have to wonder about Taiwan in all of this.
A lot of Taiwanese have come out and said, we don't want this trip.
We don't need this right now.
We got enough headaches.
Well, I mean, that's if President Tsai was to go to Speaker Pelosi and say, look, let's just say that China, the mainland, is completely overreacting to this. This isn't precedent setting, but they have completely overreacted. The tensions are now so high. Let's take the high road and not come now, and find another way to achieve this. That is a possibility. So you say, look, we have every right to go, except the tensions that this is causing, which are completely the fault of one side, are a reason to back down. So I don't know where President Tsai is, but I will tell you, this is by far the number one issue in the United States right now from a geostrategic and foreign policy perspective.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to ask you to give us 2 sentences on the Biden-Xi phone call, because we're running up against time right now. Anything accomplished there?
Well, no, nothing was accomplished. It's good that they talked, but the tariffs didn't come off, economics didn't come down, nothing happened. So let's see if they meet in Bali at the G20. If they do, if that gets scheduled, then it'll be a sign that the relationship hopefully hasn't bottomed out yet. And I want to close on one point. Yeah. You didn't mention at all. I'm wearing the Ava So T-shirt that Ambassador Zelensky came in and wore herself, and I get no comment. I thought, Neil, for sure you would have recognized it.
I didn't get a chance, but it's great to have you back.
Blue Chip Station. Money FM 89.3. News headlines.